So here we go again. We're talking about why Bitcoin's going to reach $1 million. And I believe that cryptocurrency is the number one use case for all, currency is the number one use case for all cryptocurrency. That's why it's called a cryptocurrency. As much as, I put out a video yesterday, and I'll try to put that up here so you can watch it. And it was talking about Tron price and where I think where Tron was going to go and what were the fundamental factors on why I think Tron is going to go up in price as a cryptocurrency and why I could see it being, a top 3 cryptocurrency. And if you go watch that video, I start talking about some of the fundamental reasons and use cases. And in that video, I mentioned that decentralized applications is the second most important reason for cryptocurrency, in my personal opinion. Blockchain technology as a whole. However, the number one use case, without question, is as a currency. And I think that a lot of times people speculate, and I find it fascinating. Shout out to Crypto Tone, who's supposed to be lining up a video with John McAfee. That's a big interview if he's able to land that for someone that has a YouTube channel of 11,000 subscribers. But big shout out to him for that. But one of the things I mentioned on his channel, I said, hey, ask him in the comment section. I said, hey, ask him if, what's his thoughts on regulation? Because I think mass adoption can occur with and without regulation. And there's a lot of people talking about whether regulation is good or bad. And I think ultimately regulation is not positive. I think regulation will ultimately be an attempt to hold on to power. I mean, if you understand how the economic system works, governments have to control the creation of money. The U.S. economic system could not exist if everybody paid off their debt. It would collapse 100%. There's a video on YouTube, you can Google it, Money as Debt. I oftentimes reference it. I think every middle schooler in North America, really every middle schooler in the developed world, should be required to watch that video. But of course, that's not going to happen, because if that was the case, then citizens across the world would be waking up to the current situation that we're in. And the situation that we're in will continue as long as we as citizens allow ourselves to get screwed over by central economic planners, such as the central banks, etc. When you see this right here, this is scary. Feds to increase temporary liquidity available to markets. What does that mean? It means that they're literally creating money out of nothing. And anytime you create more of something, one of the reasons people like cryptocurrency, one of the reasons they like deflationary tokens, one of the reasons they like when dApps like, TronBet and Wink burns tokens, have a token burn. Part of the reason people like things like Frag token and different tokens like Void and stuff like that. The reasons they like those tokens is because they're deflationary tokens. So the theory is if there's less supply, then the price of the token goes up. Same thing with the dollar. The more dollars that there are, the less that your dollar is able to buy. There's a reason, 100 years ago, an ounce of gold had about the exact same buying power that an ounce of gold has today. However, the dollar has over 90% less buying power today than, meaning if you go to buy, something at the store, it cost, 90 times more in theory than what it cost 100 years ago, because the dollar is devalued so much. Why is the dollar devalued? Because we're in an economy that's considered Keynesian economics, and Keynesian economics is debt-based. So, and I know if what I'm talking right now just fogs your brain, then I highly recommend you go watch the documentary. It's about 45 minutes. It's the best thing you can ever do for your cryptocurrency future, period, end of story. And go watch that documentary, Money as Debt. So the Fed is going to increase liquidity. Let's talk about this for a moment. Then I'm going to talk about this towards the end, about Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I've got, on one hand, I like seeing him get grilled by Congress. On the other hand, I think it's stupid. And they're all talking about the Libra coin. And I think we should watch this carefully, because I think this is really going to foretell the future, because I don't think Mark Zuckerberg, at least at this moment, is a part of the centralized economic system. I think he's just looking for a way to be able to create profits for himself in Facebook. And I think he recognizes that if he can steal a little bit of the financial power from the bankers, then there's a lot of money to be made charging fees for transaction costs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think he knows that, and he's basically trying to go up against the bankers. I don't think it's going to work because these politicians are in the pockets of the big bankers, the Goldman Sachs of the world, et cetera. But we'll get to this in just a moment. So let's talk about this. Fed to increase temporary liquidity available to markets. Minimum size raised for overnight long-term operations. Now, even as this news is coming out, the price of Bitcoin is going down. I think this is not financial advice, but my personal opinion is this is the time to start buying Bitcoin. This is why, I have things like the CryptoTab browser, which, by the way, just a quick side note, I broke a record today, or is technically it's yesterday. Check this out real quick. I had the highest active miners I've had, 567. It's getting so close to breaking 600 active miners. Almost, I'd gotten to 119. My record of level 1 active miners is 120. So one of the reasons I love CryptoTab right now, I think now's the time to build it in a bear market, is because all these referrals, it's harder to show people the power of it when the earnings are lower because everybody is still so focused on US dollars. But I think now's the time to be stacking Bitcoin. Now's the time to be buying up Bitcoin when the price is going down. And one of the videos that I just put out, I'll put it above here as well. One of the videos I just put out was the last video I put out. It was about an hour long. I was talking about getting referrals in the cryptocurrency space. One of the benefits to learning how to advertise for referrals now on things like your coin faucets, other crypto type programs, and of course, definitely for CryptoTab browser, one of the benefits of advertising that now in a down market is because all these people get it. They're all using the CryptoTab browser. They don't care that the price is going down. When the market turns around, this will explode because everybody who knows somebody is going to want to buy Bitcoin. All of a sudden, the price is going to go up. It's going to be far more attractive to use a CryptoTab browser instead of getting a few dollars a month. You might be getting $10, $20, $30 a month just for using the web browser. You want to have as many people, basically as many affiliates as you can have within your organization or underneath you, because ultimately this will explode when the price of cryptocurrency turns around. And so that's why I'm so adamant about using it, stacking it, but most importantly, advertising to get referrals with it. You can go watch that last video. All right, so let's talk about this for a moment. Fed to increase temporary liquidity available to market. So the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is boosting the amount of temporary liquidity it is willing to make available. Temporary liquidity, that's the same thing as temporary cash. We're willing to give you cash regardless of credit. Is willing to make available to financial markets starting this week, the bank said on Wednesday. It said that as of Thursday, the minimum size of its overnight repurchase agreement or repo operations will rise to $120 billion from what had been at least $75 billion. Wow, I didn't realize that. That's almost a double. That is scary. That is so scary. The longer term operations will rise from a minimum daily offering size of $35 billion and go up to $45 billion in interventions scheduled on Thursday and October 29th. The longer-term repo operations are scheduled to carry over into November. I'm going to add this to my playlist on my channel, and I'll put the playlist into this video. In fact, it's normally at the end of all my videos, and it's Bitcoin to 1 million. But this is showing you fundamental proof, because I promise you, in another week or another month or another couple months, in less than 90 days, there will be more news stories about them increasing liquidity, providing, selling more, T-bills or whatever they're going to do. You'll be seeing more of these types of articles. Right now, they're trying to do it temporarily for a short period of time. Remember these numbers, because the next time we come around, they're going to be saying, hey, they're doing 150 billion, they're doing 200 billion. And all this is doing is it's literally foretelling the collapse of the US dollar. And it's crazy to think about. The Fed said that it is raising the minimum operation size to mitigate the risk of money market pressures that could adversely affect policy implementation. That's just a bunch of jargon to say the market's not doing good, the economy's not doing good, there's a credit crisis. Even though Main Street's not feeling it yet, Wall Street is saying we do have problems. Fed repo operations add liquidity to financial markets by loaning cash to eligible banks in return for taking in Treasury debt, which effectively functions as collateral for the loans. The Fed restarted large-scale repo operations a month ago when it confronted with unexpectedly big swings in money market borrowing rates. Interest rates spiked ahead of the September Federal Open Market Committee meeting for a number of factors. Much of it was due to tax payments and Treasury debt settlements. But as part of an effort to tamp down on market volatility, the New York Fed has made large-scale repos a regular occurrence again. Keep in mind, back before September, they weren't even doing this. The Fed is seeking to further reduce the prospect of money market rate volatility with around $60 billion in Treasury bill purchases a month into next year, as part of an effort to grow the size of its nearly $4 trillion balance sheet. The increased size of the operations announced by the New York Fed on Wednesday came as the Federal Open Market Committee is about to deliberate on monetary policy next week. The panel is widely expected to lower rates again by a quarter percentage point next Wednesday. The Fed's increased liquidity offerings could be a bid to further ensure market rates don't spike again as they did ahead of the September FOMC meeting. Now, think about this. They're going to lower rates again. Now, I know many of you who watch my YouTube channel, because you're into cryptocurrency, you tend to be under the age of 30, 35. But any of you that are older than 35 years old, you're 40, 45, 50, 20, 30 years ago, if you heard your parents or someone talking about a mortgage rates were like, 8, 9, 10%. If they were to raise mortgage rates to that today, we'll probably never see mortgage rates under the current financial system that high again. If they did, it would literally collapse the market. We are on a financial market, a debt-based market that is that weak. This is ultimately why cryptocurrency, I believe, will be the only option in the long term. In recent overnight repo interventions, banks have taken less than the central bank has been willing to offer. On Wednesday, the Fed added $49.845 billion in one-day liquidity to financial markets. Wow. The overnight repurchase agreement operation took in $42 billion in treasuries, $100 million in agency securities, and $7.5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. Last week, the New York Fed leader, John Williams, told reporters that the Fed is still trying to figure out how to deal with the market's liquidity needs. Listen, right there it is. They're saying we're stuck. We're running out of options, which in turn affects short-term rates and the Fed ability to influence the cost of borrowing. We're going to continue to learn through January. The smartest financial minds in the room are currently saying, we don't know what we can do with this current base system. Since we're going to keep these repos going through some periods of, various conditions, especially year-end stress, I think we'll learn from that and we'll have new insights into whether a change is needed or current plans will hold, Mr. Williams said. A change is needed. The only way to get out of it is to change the entire economic system that we're a part of right now. Now listen, this is very negative for the US dollar, but it's very bullish long-term news for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Now, if you start thinking, so what is the government going to do? Wealth, are you saying that the government's going to ultimately come alongside and adopt cryptocurrency? No, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think ultimately they're going to kick the can down the road. They're going to devalue your savings because they have to. They're going to devalue your retirement plan, your parents' retirement plan, and your grandparents' retirement plan to the point that no one can really afford to retire. And I think this because the value of the dollar is going to go down. I think inflation will continue to increase year after year, and it will only trend upward and it will not trend backwards. And I believe that it's going to continue for some time. I think it's been continuing trending upward. If you look at the macro charts, not over a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period, but if you look over decades, you'll see the inflation over time. If you look at true inflation, the way that it was originally calculated in the beginning, it's off the chart. Now, you may not know this, but the government officially adjusts how they calculate inflation every few years. The reason they do it is so the official number doesn't look out of control. And you don't realize that, hey, we might be at 8 or 10% inflation. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it. And so the question is, what's going to happen? I think ultimately, to answer the question I mentioned earlier, I think I think ultimately the government doesn't want a decentralized cryptocurrency to come along. I think ultimately they actually would want something like the Libra coin, only they want it to be controlled. They want it to be a digital currency, not a true crypto blockchain currency. They want it to be sheerly a digital currency so they can still control how it's, how it's manufactured. Yeah, that's the right word. How it's manufactured or how it's created. They want to control the money supply in general. Take a listen to this. And there's a few things about this video. This is today. Mark Zuckerberg is getting grilled by Congress right here. And they're really kind of grilling him about the Libra coin. And just listen to this, what this lady Maxine Waters had to say.
Does not ring true. Mr. Zuckerberg, each month, 2.7 billion people use your products. That's over a third of the world's population. That's huge.
So
that's so big that it's clear to me and to anyone who hears this list that perhaps you believe that you're above the law, and it appears that...
Can we talk about why he's supposed to be above the law? She's saying that it seems like he's above the law.
That you aggressively...
Because his company is so big. That's so stupid. Did you see Mark Zuckerberg kind of cut his eyes to the right and left like, okay, it's a big business. What do you want me to do about that? Do you want me to have a smaller business? I mean, that's so ridiculous because just because the size of the business, he thinks he's above the law. That is, this woman couldn't fight her way out of an economic paper bag if you tore the hole in front of her in the paper bag. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Increasing the size of your company. And
isn't that what an entrepreneur is supposed to do? Sorry, I'm ranting here, but this is ridiculous. Some of the reasons that people complain about business is stupid. I'm not saying that Facebook's amazing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying her arguments are ridiculous.
This list that perhaps you believe that you're above the law, and it appears that you are aggressively increasing the size of your company and are willing to step on or over anyone, including your competitors, women, people of color, your own users, and even our democracy.
Now, how did she throw women and people of color in there? Sorry, I hate to stick up for Mark Zuckerberg, but this woman is an idiot. I mean, what did that have to do with him growing a big business? Does his platform not serve women and people of color? Heck, one of the most profitable segments on his entire platform is women. How ridiculous. But let's keep going.
Women, people of color, your own users, and even our democracy to get what you want. All of these problems I've outlined, and given the company's size and reach, it should be clear.
Sorry, these stupid ads. I mean, this is ridiculous. But what she says at the end is very telling.
While we have serious concerns about your plans to establish a global digital currency that would challenge the U.S. dollar.
That right there is the most powerful few words. They have concerns about a digital currency that would challenge the U.S. dollar. That's why I'm telling you that I think, for the most part, regulations are anti-cryptocurrency. For the most part, regulations are not going to be positive for cryptocurrency. That's why I don't get all caught up whether back happens or doesn't happen, or I don't really care whether there's an ETF, and like none of that matters, because I don't think ultimately is it good in the short term? Maybe, but the long term is when we get to a place, and we're a long ways from this, by the way, but when we get to the place that citizens choose to interact with cryptocurrency, they choose to take responsibility for their own economic system, they choose to take responsibility for their own private keys, and they don't care what the bankers and the politicians say, that they want to be responsible for themselves, and they don't expect a banker or a politician to protect them or to protect their income or to protect their assets. They understand that the politicians can't be trusted, so therefore they choose to take responsibility for their own financial economic well-being, and they don't want a government who's going to abuse it and ultimately destroy their wealth through inflation. What say you? Do me a favor, chime in down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and if any of this resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up.